So Rufus, if you wouldn't mind making a start, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ray, and good morning, good afternoon, everybody. I hope you're having a great day at this terrific event, and thank you for choosing to spend the next 25 minutes or so with me as we spend a bit of time looking at how organisations of all shapes and sizes can use digital channels to transform customer contact and customer experience. So as Ray said, my name's Rufus Grig. I run strategy here at Maintel, and I've spent pretty much my entire career of 25 or so years in communications technology, particularly around customer and employee communication. And throughout all of that time, I've been particularly focused on how that technology impacts the experience of consumers and employees, and how that in turn impacts on their relationships with brands and their employers, and what that means for their futures together. And I'd like to start off by offering a slightly controversial statement, particularly given the title of the event that we're at today, and that for many organisations, I think they think digital transformation is seen as something a little out of reach, something that's only for the upstart, well-funded newcomers or the established, deep-pocketed giants. Now, they've all seen conference presentations talking about the digital darlings and disruptors, the Ubers, the Netflix, the Airbnbs, and how they've changed the world, and they can feel a little excluded by that and feel that digital transformation perhaps isn't for them. Well, I think that in customer experience and customer contact, organisations of any size can see a positive impact for relatively little outlay and relatively simple technical projects. And particularly in times of great upheaval and uncertainty, like the one we're going through at the moment, that digitisation of customer engagement isn't just tolerated by customers, it's positively and warmly and enthusiastically welcomed. And I do use the word customers, apologies, I will use that a little bit interchangeably here, but I am not just referring to commercial organisations. I also mean hospitals serving their patients, local authorities serving their citizens, schools and colleges serving students and parents. So it's customers and people for whom we're providing services. So in the next 25 minutes or so, I'm just going to look at a few very practical steps that all organisations can take to make sure that digital is an appropriate and key part of their communications mix. So I'll whiz through the agenda. We'll start by sharing some consumer research that we conducted. We're just in the process of publishing into consumer preferences around communications channels for both live speech, or telephone calls as we used to call them, and messaging. I'm then going to spend a little bit of time looking at the different digital channels that are in use in customer engagement, how we use them, how consumers use them, in preparation for moving on to talk about how, at a time of limited availability of live agents caused by some of the moves to remote working we've seen as a result of the pandemic, deflection to digital channels can help manage experience across all channels. And then finally, I'll conclude with some thoughts about how best to get started on implementing AI-based chatbots to supplement that human-mediated digital channels. 30 seconds on Maintel. We are a UK-based organisation. We focus all over the UK, Scotland, and the other parts of the country. And we're experts in delivering managed and cloud communication services. We help our customers in three ways. We help to make their people more effective and efficient with digital workplace technology. We help them to acquire, develop and retain their own customers with customer experience technology. And we help their employees and their customers connect securely to their applications and their data with secure networks. And today we're here in collaboration with our terrific partner Avaya, whom we've worked with on both digital workplace and customer experience projects for our joint customers for more than 20 years. So a look at our research. A quick word on the methodology. Now, this is proper research, not just stuff we've got up for marketing purposes, although I have to admit we will use it for some marketing purposes in the coming months. It was carried out in September, well, actually last month, by 3Gen Research, and we canvassed the opinions and preferences of 2,000 UK adults. As you can see from the distribution charts, the sample was managed to make sure we got pretty broad representation across gender, across age, and across geography. So I think we can genuinely claim that this research reflects an accurate picture of UK preferences that's pretty on point with timing as well. Now, there's a lot of stuff to come out of this research. Some of the more consumer-oriented data we're going to be publishing next week, and I will share a link at the end of this presentation where you'll be able to go download a copy of the report and get your hands on the raw data yourselves. But I just wanted to share 3 findings that I think in particular relate to customer experience. So the first is on what drives people to call a business. And when I say call, I do mean physically picking up a phone. These days, it's much more likely to be a mobile phone. In fact, the research says that well over 60% of all calls that people are going to make into businesses will use a mobile rather than a landline. And the positive I think to take from this is that still the majority of reasons that drive people to get in touch with an organization is because they want to place business with that organization, to conduct a positive transaction. So it's clear that the most common reason they're going to contact your business is because to spend money with you, or if you're providing a public service, to transact on that service with you. What's perhaps slightly less positive is that according to the research, the majority of these people are only getting in touch by phone after failing to be able to do what they wanted to do using self-service or other channels. So you can see the big box on the left, the pie chart. 61% of calls wouldn't have been made if the customer or the consumer had been able to conduct the business that they wanted to conduct using that self-service channel. So you can see there are really big gains to be made if we can make these digital channels more successful, both in terms of protecting the live precious resource within the contact center, but also it's clear that people actually want to transact using the self-service channel. And then finally, in a slide that is going to surprise absolutely nobody, we asked what people's biggest frustrations were when calling, and I expect we could have all have guessed, holding on while waiting for a call to be answered, or not being able to speak to somebody straight away, are really right up there. And so again, at times where we've got pinch points and constraints on our resource, if we can help people to self-serve and use those digital channels, we're helping our organizations and we're helping the customers that we seek to serve as well. And we did actually also, this is not our research, but one of our CX analysts looked across every research paper they could find that had been published in 2019. And there is a 75% of people expect that they will be able to self-serve for the vast majority of the interactions that they want to do with a business. For somebody, an old dinosaur like me, who's been involved in customer contact for as long as I have, I am still pleasantly surprised by this. When self-service was first introduced using things like interactive voice response or the very early days of the web, it was often viewed by consumers as a second choice experience. It was the brand saving money by making them do the work themselves. But clearly the development of more compelling web and mobile experiences, plus that changing attitude to technology in general, we none of us leave home without our smartphones, means that for some time now, self-service has been expected to be the norm, with really the need to speak to or interact with a live agent generally being the result of the online process failing. So just to have a look at the different channels that we have out there, in common use, and there is a difference in the channels have evolved over time, and I think digital communication channels will continue to evolve as long as technologists keep innovating and as long as humans keep evolving. But because of this process of evolution of the technology, I don't think I'm committing too great a sweeping statement to say that channel preferences are often quite determined by age group. And while these are definitely not hard and fast, it's clear that a lot of you can predict a lot about the channel preferences by that sort of age demographic. The baby boomer generation was buying insurance and even trainers long before the internet was invented, or even the contact center. So there's an ingrained lived experience of face-to-face and physical. For the Generation X's, of whom I'm a card-carrying member, we're far more likely to be comfortable with phone or with email as a contact channel, as it's what we've grown up with. Millennials are very comfortable with using web chat, and the Generation Z brigade, of which I'm the father of 4 of them, view their social messaging and their social networking tools as their absolute primary communication mechanism. Month in, month out, my kids' mobile usage is all data, with 0 calls and 0 texts. In fact, the only times they would ever make a phone call or send a text is when they're asking me or their mum to come and pick them up from somewhere. So if we're implementing self-service right across our customer base or our citizen base, as we've already discussed that we want to and our customers want us to, we've got to make sure that they can interact with our customers on the channel that they want to be able to interact with. And of course, we know that they want to be able to do it because it's quick, it's easy, it's available 24/7, and they can get that help instantly without waiting for one of our people to be available. So I just want to raise a couple of things about consistency. So as these channels have evolved over the years, over the last decade or so, in many cases, organisations have set them up with separate teams, and sometimes even in separate buildings, and sometimes even outsourced to separate organisations, and using separate tools. And this can result in a very different experience for customers across each channel. The voice channel, apologies for the ACD is a very 1980s term, but it really means voice. Typically, you might have a service level aspiration or expectation of a wait time for 2 minutes. It's not uncommon for email, an email or web forms or any kind of text-based communication through the website to have a response time that might be measured in days. And it's not that I think anyone sets out to offer a service that's that poor, but I think for all of us, if we're honest, we're really only likely to email an organisation when we're in no rush about when they respond. And for live chat, many organisations don't even offer that as an option to their customers on the website unless there's actually an agent live and available to manage it. So there's quite often an expectation that you won't have to wait at all for that live chat. So the first deviation in consistency is in that response time. But the second is about the tone of voice that's used within each channel. So voice is typically very conversational and friendly because it's a human talking to another human. And that's probably actually the most accurate way that you would want to see your brand represented. But email is often quite formal, the sort of referring to your email of the 14th of this month type stuff. And again, it's not surprising that people know that if they write an email, it's kind of there's a record of it for posterity, and they go into that more formal mode. And with the chat and the social platforms, again, generally a much more casual tone. Potentially using slang and tools like emojis and things. So if we're going to try to support our customers across all of these brands, we really want to start thinking about how we can offer a more consistent brand experience, independent of the channel, and one that reflects your brand personality. So you can achieve this, you can get to it by using sort of consistent templates, informal scripting, set of FAQs and answers that are common across all of those different channels. If your technology allows it, multi-skill, or if you can't, rotate agents around the channels to make them, to help sort of reinforce that, so that you get to a world where you've got that friendly tone that reflects your brand across all 3. And while I don't expect anyone's going to be able to respond to emails within 2 minutes, you can at least work towards a little bit of harmonization around expectation of channel as well, and that will all help unify that experience and encourage customers to feel that using digital channels as a way of helping them to self-serve is something that they'll be happy to do. So far so ordinary. 2020 though has really thrown up some challenges to the customer contact world. So firstly, there's been an absolutely enormous rise in the volume of contact as people need to inquire just because life isn't normal anymore. So, you know, it's not just obviously about test, track and trace and very COVID related things, but all businesses and service providers across all sectors have been having to change the way they operate, whether that's a retailer switching to curbside collections, or the restaurant, you know, requiring booking and you know, menu pre-selection and very defined service times, you know, financial services companies seeking to help customers in need, whatever it is. These unprecedented times have all sort of come together to lead to an unprecedented increase in contact volumes. But in the customer service world, the double whammy is that while all this has been happening, contact centers themselves have been forced into a very rapid change in their whole operating model. So, you know, from the very harsh and extremes of lockdown in the spring to even now, where we've got very significantly reduced office occupancy because of social distancing requirements, you know, agents have customer service agents have moved pretty much wholesale into home and to remote working, and that presents a very real challenge. Now, even the most modern contact center platform that can deliver crystal clear voice quality over the internet, that supports everything in a modern browser with no need to sort of muck around with things like VPN clients and other difficult to manage things from an agent perspective, they can't cope with a couple of real hard facts, which are most contact center agents aren't issued with their own personal issue laptops, because they use the desktop that sits on their desk in the contact center, and many don't necessarily have a quiet place at home where they could work even if they did have the technology to do it. So even though the underlying technology is there, the practical realities of everyday life has meant that voice as a channel has been much more difficult to service. So we're going to look in the next few minutes about how some deflection services can help identify the issues that can be simply resolved online or via self-service, freeing up that scarcer resource for the most important interactions. One of the things that Mark from Accenture said in his keynote right at the beginning of the day, when he was talking about that premium that's placed on live, you know, whether that live is real face-to-face or whether that live is speaking to an individual human being, how do we preserve that for the people that we really need it for? I'm actually going to canter over this one. So we know that these I've already alluded to the fact that if self-service is the default, live interactions are predominantly for that out of process, the complex, the distress situation, or the unusual circumstance. Well, those were 1% of interactions in 2019. In 2020, that's probably going to be a much bigger percentage of all interactions. So the problem has actually sort of compounded itself. So with this live resource being more precious than ever, the best way to preserve access to that resource is to promote that self-service. And really trying to get to a point where the intervention of a live agent is a last resort only. With self-service adoption increasing, you know, we do need to put more effort into how do we identify and prioritize that contact that genuinely needs that live agent or that advisor support. So we'll talk about that a little bit. Just something, I'll cover something that may sound a little bit obvious but often gets overlooked. Is the very simple approach of what I call getting to your customers before they get to you. So, you know, unexpected events can cause massive influxes of contact volumes. So if you've got an outage, you're running late with your deliveries, you know, bad weather's coming, whatever it is, you know, proactively notifying your customers can actually deflect them from up front and save them even attempting to get into contact with you. So, you know, ideally, if your process can allow you to target customers with an email or an SMS message within 30 minutes of the event occurring, and best practice says, you know, actually put a link to the website where they can then go for updates or further information within that email or SMS. All of that will help to protect the main contact center from that additional interaction volumes. Again, I know it sounds very obvious, but you'd be surprised just how often this sort of thing is missed. I think secondly, it's really important to understand, if we are going to be deflecting calls to digital channels and to self-service, what type of calls do we want to deflect? And perhaps more importantly, which types of calls do we want to not deflect? Which ones do we know we actually need to offer that live agent experience for? We help nobody if we push the complex interactions into a self-service platform that we know isn't going to be able to help them. So we need to determine both which sort of interaction you need to prioritize for live support and which sort of customer you might need to be able to identify for that live support too. So, you know, the interactions I think are generally straightforward to work out, the things that aren't simply done with self-service. In terms of which of your customers are regular callers, that's a little bit more tricky. So in a commercial organization, this might be your highest spenders, your most profitable customers. But the reality for a lot of service organizations is this is much more likely to be perhaps people who are more vulnerable, you already know have a significant need, and they're the ones that you want to be able to prioritize. So the most important thing really we're going to have to be able to do if we are going to properly segment and tune how we deflect people is being able to identify the customer who's calling. I mentioned earlier that the percentage of calls that come in from mobile phones has significantly increased. So the calling line identity, or the CLI of the mobile, has actually become a really pretty accurate way of determining who the caller is, even identifying specific caller from a multi-person household. That's not always possible. So you can then use a tone or speech up front to ask a customer to identify themselves using an account card or number, or if you can't do that, you can at least give you some indication of what it is that they need. So once you've identified the customer, it's then the time to identify if the issue is important or urgent, or if it warrants that immediate transfer to a live agent, and actually making sure that you do that as quickly as you can. Now, everyone's business is different. Whether it's a vulnerable person in a service organization, it might be somebody who's got an open ticket that hasn't been resolved. You'll be able to work out those on a use case by use case basis. And it may be that having identified the caller, you can identify the issue even up front before you've done anything about it. So are all deliveries delayed from a certain postcode area, for example, or is there a power outage or reduced water pressure in a particular location? Are all your stores operating on the same reduced opening hours? So if that's the case, you may be able to offer a simple information message at that point, which may answer the caller's question without them ever needing to ask it of you or queue for a live or a digital channel. Failing that, you can start to offer menus personalized either to that particular customer's issue or to their characteristics. So you might want to offer them web self-service, in which case you're going to significantly increase your right first time hit rate if you can include a link to the web self-service in an SMS message, for example. Now, if you have it, you might be able to transfer them through to an IVR or an interactive voice response self-service. Now, this is certainly less prevalent than it was, but some people still do have it. It may simply be that if the issue is non-urgent, you can offer a callback, which is a good way of flattening the peaks in demand, delaying the demand until you have less busy periods in your contact center. And of course, if the caller really wants to, you can still give them an option to wait to speak to that live agent, but at least you understand now a little bit more about what it is that they want, how you can prioritize it, how you can get it to that right agent as well. Just a quick note on one of the challenges of trying to encourage customers to self-serve if they haven't previously, is that one poor experience can have a long-lasting impact on their willingness to self-serve in the future. So very quick, slightly trite example. Let's say you've got Fred. Fred usually calls the sales team, but today he's decided he's going to contact the website. So he goes onto the portal. You can't find an answer to his question. The good news is he's still got the telephone number he's been calling for years, so he phones up the agent. The agent answers his problem, solves it all, and Fred never considers using the self-service channel again. And in the business, this is called the channel regression problem, which is if I don't have a positive experience with the self-service first time, then I'll never use it again. So what can we do to help keep Fred online? And typically, we proactively offer chat. Chat is really the best way of being able to do this. Proactively offer chat before Fred reaches for the phone. So web chats are typically, they do take longer. Sometimes they can actually cost more to operate than calls. But if you can keep Fred in that web domain to help him find the answer to his problem, then it's likely, although it's just that little bit of investment up front, it can then help him self-serve on his future trips to your website. But what happens if you don't have enough agents? You can't offer that live interaction when Fred runs into trouble. And that's when chatbots really can come into their own, because they can offer that help they're available at a moment's notice, they're available 24/7. And they're a very quick and simple way to deflect those frequently asked questions. And if they can't answer a question, they can at least offer a degree of triage and then arrange to transfer to the best agent. Just a little bit of a word about chatbots. Not all chatbots are AI driven. They're not all using artificial intelligence. They're not all using natural language analysis and using natural language parsing. Some of them are a little bit more basic and more menu driven. And all of them can be very helpful in this sort of scenario. They are quick and simple to add. You don't have to have an existing chat system available on your website. They can be simply put as an overlay to your website. And the breakout from a chatbot, if the chatbot isn't successful, doesn't have to be a continued chat. You can push out a telephone number, you can offer a callback or an email form. So chatbot, doesn't necessarily need to be thought of as the complete end-to-end solution to the issue. It can simply be about just doing a little bit of triage. If you are going to go that full route down the AI chatbot, and there are some very good reasons to do that. The first thing to do is to really understand where you're going to get the biggest return. So the good news is contact center platforms are not short of data and analysis. The telephony systems and chat systems are very good at being able to identify reason for call. Some of the website, and if you're just handling customer emails through a sort of shared inbox, that's less likely to be particularly effective at getting you to the answer that you want. But fortunately, there are tools that can be used to kind of wrap around your customer contact data that you can either buy the tools, or you can engage a professional services firm that have access to the tools that can run it across your data. And they can analyze both speech from your call recordings, or text from your existing web chats, or from email. And these tools are pretty sophisticated, and they will enable you to apologies, I'm clicking on a bit too happily there. They will enable you to judge a lot of the reasons for contact, which ones are the most prevalent, which are the most asked questions, what sort of language is used when those questions are asked. And this is helpful when you're for lots of reasons. What questions are people asking can help you make sure that your help pages on your website are better, maybe improving your product documentation, maybe even actually addressing issues in your products or services themselves. But you can take all of these text and speech analysis tools to understand, also the sentiment or the emotion. Are people cross or upset when they're asking these sorts of questions, which again can help you pinpoint where the pinch points are. They're also good at identifying trending themes, seasonally, identifying seasonal peaks of particular topics that again you might be able to address operationally or through the website. And all of this will help you to build out your library of responses to common queries and inquiries, to tag them, to be able to understand the language that's most commonly used to solve the problems, and identify the areas of most need. And all of that will give you a really big leg up when it comes to embarking upon looking into the use of a natural language genuine AI chatbot. If you've got a good handle on the reasons for calling and the respective volumes, particularly the types of language, the phrases used, or utterances as they're called in the natural language world, to ask these questions and to have well-defined and well understood responses to them, either text or simple processes, that will be a really big starting point for understanding where a chatbot implementation can help. So whether you're looking to implement it using with your looking to implement using natural language. The key element is to understanding that intent from your customers. So, a couple of terms. An utterance is the phrase that the customer might type into the bot. The intent is what they want. So, in this example here, the intent is show me the news. And there's a couple of entities that are in here. So, I want the news from yesterday, and it's specifically the financial news too. So, if you can collate all this information up front, when you do kick off your chatbot project, you will be in a much better situation to be able to deliver a successful outcome. So some key takeaways. I'm sure you'll get a copy of these slides afterwards. Just to think, a quick SMS can deflect and save an awfully long call. Deflecting callers who can self-serve helps you provide the customers who really need it with that live support. Web chat can be a great way of helping make sure people stick to their self-service, and chatbots can significantly reduce contact and can offer breakout to voice and email as well as chat. So that really is pretty much it in terms of time from me. I think we've probably got a couple of questions, so I will hand back to Ray to see what questions we have.
Super, thank you very much indeed, Rufus. Very enlightening. Yeah, a few questions are coming through the Q&A. Security implications with agents working at home, can they be solved by the use of digital channels?
Yes and no, depending on the use of channels and what the security thing is. So there are definitely security implications. You are taking, potentially customer data is moving into employees' homes rather than staying within the secure environment of the contact center. And if you don't have methods of taking secure payment, such as using the phone or deflecting customers to the web to do it, then absolutely pushing customers into those self-service channels can help remove that very, very sensitive customer data, credit card data, personal information from an area where it might not be considered safe. So yeah, it can absolutely be a help.
Super. And is there a certain size of contact center it needs to be before AI becomes economically viable, given this big shift towards AI? Is it only for the big boys, or can the mid-market customers use this?
So I think again, it depends on that percentage of your questions. If you have a very large volume of questions that are quite simple and all around the same area, then even a small organization can benefit from that, because you can have a less expensive, well-targeted chatbot deployment just to handle the sorts of inquiries around a smaller context. If you've got a very broad variety of inquiries and questions, then it might be more difficult for a smaller contact center to be able to, or a smaller organization to be able to cost justify it.
Super. And is there any particular platform you need to have in place before you embark on the implementation of the technology?
No, obviously the more modern the platform, the more easy it will be to integrate, but actually you can start with chatbot technology just almost as standalone around the website that you've got. As I mentioned earlier, being able to deflect to telephone calls or to SMSs or to emails if you can't hand the call off to a chatbot within the agent. So
super.
So yeah.
Rufus, thank you very much indeed. Folks, if you have got any further questions, the Maintel team are on the booth. Just jump into open chat and they can take you off to private chat if required to do so, or you can even spin up a one-to-one video on the platform as well. But for now, Rufus, Grig, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much, Ray. Thanks everyone for listening.
Thank you.